move now to question number 6, which is also the last question. Ms. Harrison will be the first respondent, and the question is, unfortunately, bullying in schools has been a problem across the nation. How would you ensure that all students are safe from bullying?
I don't think it's possible to completely ensure that any student will be safe from bullying. I believe that we can educate our students and we can listen. My daughter had an issue in 6th grade. She put up with it for a long time. She wanted to handle it on her own. We got toward the end of school and she came in one day and she said, "Mom, I've had it. You can go to school now." I am so proud to tell you that Beth Belcher in 1 week handled the situation. She had another situation at Vance, and I said, "Sis," sorry, call her sis, "have you talked to," if this was Miss Reed, I said, "have you talked to Miss Reed about this?" She said, "No, not yet." And I said, "Don't you think you need to put your faith in her and ask her?" She handled it immediately, professionally, quietly, and took care of it. I think we need to listen to our children and listen to what they say. And if they can't handle it, we as parents have to be involved with it. And if it involves calling the teacher and calling the student, then you've got to do it. You've got to stand up. And I think we can help the teachers know what to do, provide more education, and then ask the students to help. I think they can be involved in that process too. Thank you.
You know, bullying it's becoming more and more difficult all the time, especially with the media that we have and the access to technology. And there's a real issue about whether is it a school issue or is it a community issue? Is it a family issue? Is it something else? Where can the school step in and where not should step in? And so it becomes very difficult. Bullying is really tough. And I got to tell you about Jackson Mead. Jackson Mead was a disciplinarian when I was at Principal Tennessee High School. He had a program called He Said, She Said. He spent so much time with kids about what was really going on between them. He was extremely successful, but it took more time than he really had to do with it. And that's why it's neglected so much in schools, because teachers don't have time to do it. We don't have time to with these little bitty problems. They don't realize that those little bitty problems become big problems and may lead into problems that are really serious for that family, that child, the family, or the system. It takes a lot of time. Whenever you bring a teacher in, a parent in, a student in, administrator in, you're talking about a lot of time, especially if you got 1,000 students in your school. But it's something that we have to be diligent about. We have to find ways to do that, to be more cognizant of what's a serious situation. And of course, every little situation could lead to a more serious situation. It's a difficult and challenging problem, and it will require a lot of work and effort.
Butcher?
I think it still gets down to interpersonal relationships. If you have a building that's an open environment where you're very accepting of different cultures and different thoughts and different ideas, then some of your bullying is, taken care of at that point. At least it's reduced. Kids don't like bullies. By and large, they'll protect kids. They really will. They'll come to you. They'll tell you. They'll let you know some things are going on that you might not know. You get maybe ahead of the game a little bit. Social media now, it's so tough. I know on Monday mornings, several years ago, well, in high school when I was a principal, it was a terrible time because that was the weekend. And that's where you had to sort through all the Facebooking and all the things and the names that were being called and that kind of thing. You try to get to the facts and you address it. You make sure your faculty is modeling correctly, exactly how to act in front of kids, be a great model for them. You make sure that you never turn a blind eye. You never discount anything. If a kid tells you about something or you learn something, you simply have to address it at the school level. You must do that. You must take the time to do it because you can't learn if you don't feel safe. And that environment's not there, you're not going to be a great learning situation. Mentoring programs perhaps would be helpful. I've always been an advocate of, if we can reach out to kids before they get into some bad habits and problems, then perhaps we could head off those bullies before it ever starts. Thank you.
Ms. Ellis?
I'm not sure if I have anything new to add. I agree with everything that's been said. Bullying is, of course, serious whenever it occurs. But I think that, it's a little bit easier maybe for teachers to handle it in the younger grades, particularly difficult in high school because a lot of times the kids don't want to talk about what's going on. But I think at any level, especially high school, the more that we can do to engage kids in some activity, the less likely they are to be bullied. Your kids who participate in sports or participate in the choir or in the band, who have a group that they associate with, are more confident. They have more friends, and they carry themselves in a different way. And so I think the more that we can have activities available to kids, that will help with the bullying, and also trying to get parents involved. That has always been a challenge, and the older the kids get, the harder that gets. But some sort of parent involvement and touching base with parents, I think will help. And we have talked to other school districts where, teachers make those phone calls, and I know it seems like we're always dumping more on teachers, asking them to do something else, but sometimes there's no way getting around it, and we just certainly have to put forth the effort to get people talking and to get people involved. But bullying, definitely, whatever we have to do, we have to do it. It's too important.
That concludes the questions. We'll now move to closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement, and we'll begin with Mr. Pyle.
Well, I think it was a good evening this evening. I think a lot of good questions and a lot of good answers. I really did appreciate the answers. I think we have to develop a culture of concern, a culture of caring, and a culture of academic excellence. We have to have a culture of awareness, know what's going on, and what we can do to resolve the issue. And the Board of Education doesn't have all the answers. What we do is make policy. We look to those parents, teachers, administrators to make those recommendations that we can follow through with. Our job is to look around and see what's going on and see what we can do in a policy format to make things more effective and better for our community and our children.
Well, this is, thanks again for having this and allowing us the opportunity. I wish the room were full. I don't know why the room is not full. You perhaps might say, I might have been heard in the past, well, I don't have a dog in this hunt because I don't have kids in school. Well, I'll tell you, let me give you some statistics. 21% of our population is from 0 to 17 years of age. 21.8 is from 18 to 34. 35 to 54 is 28.8. If my arithmetic is correct, that's 71.6%. We have a total dog in this hunt. Plus, the city needs us desperately to have a wonderful school system. If you're going to, grow revenue sources, you have to bring in businesses or you have to bring in people, or perhaps both. And without a great, not good, but great school system, we're not going to be any more attractive than somebody else. So my goal, from the school board perspective, and by following policies and by supporting the folks that have been put into place, the professionals, is not make Bristol a good place to live, but make Bristol a great place to live.
I think if you ask any board member who has served on the school board before, they will tell you that your first 4 years, your first term, is a learning experience. And they will tell you that you don't feel like you really accomplish a lot because you're busy learning, and that they feel obligated to serve a second term because they've learned enough to be of use. And having done that, I feel that that's true. And over the last 8 years on the board, I have formed so many great relationships with staff, with parents, with students, that I feel like I am doing some good. I work on athletics committee, facilities committee, dress code committee, If they invite me, I come. If they don't invite me, I call and ask if I can come. Teachers usually invite me to visit their classrooms. I have about 50 kids who invite me to their sports and their activities, and I do every one that I can do. I do very many of those. But I love serving on this board, and I have such respect for education. I have such respect for the people who educate our children, and I try very hard to support them. It has not always been easy. Serving on the board doesn't make you popular. Some days you're not liked at all. But one of the things that I always do is, if there's any kind of issue, I can't stand for it to be unresolved. So, it's not beyond me to come and sit down beside someone and say, okay, let's talk about this. I think that people don't communicate enough. And so I've built some great relationships and want to continue working on those. I believe in public education. I believe we owe it to our kids. We owe it to this community to make it the very best that it can be. I spend a lot of time doing it. I travel, I visit architects, I visit other schools with the administrators. Any opportunity for me to participate with the staff, to tag along, to learn something new, and to observe our kids in the classroom, I love it. Thank you.
Ms. Harrison?
Okay, I was really disappointed. I have one topic I want to bring up before I close real quickly. One area I'm really interested in relates to mandatory concussion baseline testing. We've all seen the information that talks about the series of effects that a series of concussions can have. We have student athletes, soccer, baseball, football, that are out there playing every week. We can't prevent them, but other school systems have put a mandatory baseline testing in place. It's a software system, it's not a CAT scan. It tests your software, your short-term memory, it tests reasoning, it tests logic, it tests response. The neurologist can take that information when it's stored, do a post-concussion testing. That comparison will help him determine length of recovery, severity of concussion, and needed therapy. Other school systems are doing it. There's no reason we can't. There's foundation money available for it. Yes, I think we need to be out in the system and working, but I also believe the school board needs to be active in the community. You need to create the relationships that are going to help in the businesses, help bring in the city council, help bring in city management, because that's how we're going to grow our system, and that's how we're going to create the need and the want to help us get that new advance and bring it in. I'm going to take the last few minutes that I have to address the situation that happened to me last week. I'm speaking directly to the individuals who took 35 of my school board signs from around the city of Bristol. Nobody else's in any other race, just mine. Your actions don't affect me. It's not going to bother me in this race. What does bother me is that you have created anxiety in some senior citizens in this community. At first it was anger that the sign was taken. The next phone call was concern. A stranger came in my yard at night without my knowledge and took something that didn't belong to them. There will be consequences for this. I know it's the bell, but I'm asking right now to those individuals, what are you afraid of?
Thank you very much. Now that concludes tonight's forum. I want to thank again the candidates for being here tonight. Y'all were especially well behaved. Bill didn't have to go off very much at all. That's a good example you're setting right off the bat. I'm sure the candidates will stay back for a minute if some of you'd like to address them individually. Again, to you, the audience, thank you for being here, and have a safe journey home. Good night.